All right, everyone, I'll go ahead and I'll start the introductions as people are still trickling in. Thank you so much to everyone for checking us out at tonight at Soul Check. I am Megan Mason, co-founder of SOLACE, along with my co-founder Stephanie Cottle, who's here with us in the chat, and Dr. K. Hubbard, who's partnering with us from artKure. So this whole concept is to kind of intro you guys to what it is that we're doing. And we're so grateful to have you here for our first chat. Is that Stephanie and I identified earlier in the year that there is a huge discrepancy when it comes to mental health and people of color in our communities in the entertainment industry. Both of us have worked around the entertainment industry for years, probably dating back now about a decade, where we've been able, we started from the bottom, kind of worked our way up, and now we're out on our own and we have families, we've worked in different fields, but we've still been drawn back to the entertainment industry because it's nothing like it, right? But there's a huge, huge discrepancy when it comes to mental illness and mental wellness within our field, especially with people of color, because of the lack of support. The support systems sometimes are not there. The record industries don't support us in the way that we need to be supported. They give us our check, right? But they don't necessarily make sure that our mental is intact. So the rebirth of this idea and Solace came about with trying to identify a way to bridge that gap, to become that curated, safe place and support system between the artistry and the creatives that make the art and the medical field, and being able to put those pieces together in between. So that's why we partnered with artKure and Dr. K. Hubbard, who's also going to introduce herself in her field in just a moment. And we are going to be able to hear the perspective of our artist and special guest who's going to be here with us, and I'm going to intro after Dr. K goes ahead and lets us know about her practice and who she is. So go ahead and take it away, Kay.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much, Megan. My name is Dr. K, or you can just call me K. I've recently graduated as a naturopathic doctor, which is a modality of Western primary care in which we treat the entire person, or we address the whole individual, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So I have training as a regular doctor, but I prefer to use diet or nutrition and a lot of talking and lifestyle measures to work with my clients. The reason that I founded artKure a few years ago was because I was really interested in this idea, the space between self-healing and self-care. I see a lot of things about self-care, but for me, developing the awareness to be able to heal yourself is what is most valuable. And I found that artists and creatives tend to have that self-awareness because of the creative journeys that they go on. They have to cultivate that. So a lot of my clients are creative, and that is how I was brought together with Solace. So.
Sweet. Thank you, Kay. So without further ado, the man of the hour is our special guest, Mr. Eric Roberson. And I'm sure I am just doing an introduction that most of you all know. But to those who don't know, Eric is a prolific and award-winning R&B neo soul pioneer in the industry. He has been an independent artist and business owner for over 20 years. Has been a pioneer in that independent music lane as well. Whereas, you know, in a lot of the music industries now, indie is a thing. Well, Eric has been doing that now since probably around the late 90s. So this is nothing new to him. So everything that we're going through right now, the whole transformation and pivot in the music industry, is something that Eric has already been kind of pivoting in and making his way in. We are talking about Grammy Award nominated singer-songwriter for some of your favorite people you probably would have never imagined, with a lethal pen. Is a family man out of Rahway, New Jersey, someone that I have connected with through his art over a decade ago, and have just been blessed to have the opportunity to connect with him on a level in his process group, which he also has through the Patreon platform. And I know a lot of process members are here, so you guys can definitely sound off in the chat. And we're just so grateful to have you with us as our first guest for our inaugural Soul Check. So what I'll say is, you guys, you know, of course, you can kind of see that everyone is muted in the call. No videos are being shown, so don't feel like you have to be cute and pretty. Whatever you want to say, you can drop in the chat. If you have any questions, we will have a brief Q&A at the end, probably about 15 minutes or so, depending on how the chat goes. So drop your questions throughout the chat, and so you don't forget in the chat, so we can keep record of them, and I'll make sure that we'll get to all of them. Also, if you guys want to share on all of your social platforms, make sure that you add Eric. You can add We Create Solace, and also you can add artKure. And then our hashtag for tonight is going to be Soul Check 2020. So everything that if you take screenshots, totally fine. Whatever quotables, the gems that Eric's gonna definitely drop, that Kay's gonna drop, go ahead and record those, put them out so your friends can see, so we can continue to have this dynamic and amazing programming. So I'm gonna go ahead and be quiet, throw it on to Eric and Kay, and you guys can get started.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Megan. So, Eric, it is lovely to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this whole situation. I'm new to all of these hats. Can you explain a little bit what I'm looking at?
I'm a person that wears many hats in different ways, but this is my hat room office podcast. Get my wife mad because I messed one of the walls up in the house room. It's just I like to wear hats, and I had a large collection of them. So this is just a way that I can artistically store them or have them in reach when I need them.
Nice. Have you added any to your collection since quarantine started?
No, I really, it's funny. I haven't went hat shopping or clothes shopping at all. I don't think I bought one thing since. I have a lot of clothes. I have a lot of sneakers, shoes, suits, but I've been on keto this whole year, pretty much a keto diet, and the Amazon boxes show up pretty consistently with keto treats and pancake keto batter and all kind of stuff like that. That's probably my number one thing. I haven't really even went crazy with studio equipment. Just a couple of little things here and there, but I haven't went hat shopping. No. Got enough already. I mean,
Yeah, you were well covered. And just so that you're aware and everyone who's watching knows, I'm going to be taking notes. So if it looks like I'm looking away or looking down, because I'm writing.
I get it. A note taker. Note taken about the note taker.
Yes, it's how I'm able to ask certain questions. So why did you choose a keto diet?
My wife went on it last year, and it was really successful for her. For some reason, she talked me out of it when she went on it, and I just saw that it worked wonders for her. And I just started the year off, was like, hey, it worked for you. Let me give it a try as well. And it did really well for me. I was probably close to 260, probably in the 250s, 255, whatever. I'm in like 236 now, only because I took a week off and probably put on like 8 pounds in that week. that I just went straight cookies and pancakes and so I went out of control. But it seemed like somewhat easy to do, and I just kind of followed through with it. I'm probably not following it to the dime, like calorie counting and stuff like that. I'm just pretty much cutting out the carbs.
That's good. I mean, that sugar will get you when you end keto. It's a tricky one. What was happening that week around when you weren't keto?
So, outside of that, just rewarding myself for losing so much weight by putting everything I could possibly ingest in my body, which was bad. We were on. It was really about 2 weeks ago that I kind of took a week off, and it was interesting because I do notice that switch when your body goes into ketosis. For me, it took a very long time, and I didn't realize. Obviously, I wasn't not completely aware. So the first time it happened, I probably was sluggish, like couldn't get my head off the ground for like a week. Mm-hmm. And even this time when I said, all right, let me go back and try keto again, about day 3, I found myself like just really, really tired and just moving really slow and being really lethargic. And I had to realize, okay, your body's going back into this thing again. And it took a while. Like some people, it might just take a day. For me, it seemed like it took about 3-4 days before I was really like, okay, I'm fine now. Let's keep going.
Okay. Why? What gave you the motivation to go back into keto after you'd come off it?
Because I was putting on weight so fast. Yeah, no, really, it it was just to me, it's a discipline aspect. I mean, really, even just being in this pandemic that we're dealing with and being
Mm-hmm.
home, I would be 500 pounds right now. I mean, if all I had to do was, music and chase my kids and eat, I would be eating all day. Like, I don't really have, I'm one of those, I don't know if this is a Libra thing, but I'm very all or nothing. And I've kind of always been that way. If people look at my history as an artist, I'm very much like Luther. There's the skinny Eric, and then there's the fat Eric, and I'm back and forth. I'm back. I lose a bunch of weight, and I reward myself by gaining the weight back, and then I lose weight. So for me, if I don't have like some disciplined structure of eating, then it's just gonna be subs and pizzas and whatever. And I don't eat red meat. I don't eat pork or red meat and nothing like that. And truth be told, I'm also on a gluten-free diet that I've loosened up because of keto to a certain degree, and I'm also on a reflux diet. I had vocal cord surgery about 6 years ago, and after that, to stay healthy vocally, I made those certain changes. I had a really bad reflux problem, and so late night eating and certain foods I've completely cut out. So I'm somewhat disciplined off of that already, but I still wild out if I can. So the keto kept me on pace.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Has there been anything else that's keeping you on pace, or anything that you just completely slide back on? Like food seems to be handled. But
Well, I mean,
what else?
we got 3 young kids in the house, so it's
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, it's bonkers. You know what I mean? We're literally, and we got 2 more weeks of school left here, and it's like I can't wait for school to finish fast enough. And we got amazing school, this online, they're doing really great. But you can imagine if one 9-year-old is doing one class, a 7-year-old is doing another class, and the 4-year-old is just bouncing off the walls, and you're trying to give him some level of education. And then, of course, we're running a company, hearing song ideas and stuff like that. So, we find a good way of balancing it. And whenever my wife needs to tap out or whenever I need to tap out, we give each other those breaks, But I think pandemic with kids is a whole different experience, even from a situation of worry, like trying to be prepared. We got kids masks just today, and we put them on them to let them wear around the house so they can get comfortable in it in the moment that we will be out and they need to really wear it. I can't argue it. A 7-year-old at that point that he doesn't want to wear a mask, I got to get him comfortable in it. So those are kind of things that you just got to kind of think ahead a lot more. Running out of toilet tissue at home with no kids is one thing. Running out of toilet tissue with 3 boys, that's a really messy situation. So, we're trying to handle it as best we can.
Hmm. Hmm. So I'm gonna switch gears a little tiny bit,
Sure.
and I wanna ask you this. I know that one thing that we share is an affinity for Stevie Wonder.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you could pick 2 songs of his that are an example of what this time has been like for you, whether it's about coronavirus itself or quarantine or anything that's going on with social justice, what might be some things to stand out?
That's a great question. A Stevie Wonder song that represents, I think, music of my mind
Okay.
comes to mind. One, because my escape has been music. I did an album about a month ago.
Hmm.
Released the album about a month ago. We did it pretty much in the beginning once the pandemic started. Um, and writing has been my escape. It's probably been what's balanced. If I have worry, if I have fear, if I have stress, it goes there. As well as I think just in general, I try to live in a state of listening. So I'm constantly hearing musical ideas, constantly hearing stuff. So I know that one, my proof that God is real is through songwriting. And I think that I try to listen for the messages that I feel I need going forward through just the channels that I kind of try to stay connected to in listening. So music on my mind is probably the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I keep thinking "Don't You Worry About a Thing" is the last thing I need to be thinking about. But that's the song that popped in my head. But the other one, I struggle with this answer right now because, the lynching of George Floyd the other day has really weighed heavy on my heart and on conversations that I've had with my friends and other fathers. And so Stevie Wonder's "Evil," which is such an amazing song because he addresses, like, he's speaking to evil. So I would say that would be the other song, like really just like seeing clear as day, like that right there is evil. And why do you do that? He's like, evil. Why are you evil? You know what I mean? So that would be my answer, those two songs.
Okay. What would you say if you could speak to evil?
Whew, man, don't get me crying up in here. Don't get me crying. If I could speak to evil, man, just like, really, what is your purpose? Is it really that you have to exist so that good can exist? Or is it really just, is that your core? Is that pain and sorrow is really your core? And to really show yourself in this time, and I think you're showing yourself in so many different ways, in greed and ignorance during the pandemic, but then, the violence and stuff like that, what they did to that young man in Minneapolis is pure evil. It's just pure evil. So you're like, what is the purpose? Like, why would you show yourself like that? Would be what I would probably ask, really trying to understand, because it's confusing.
What about it's confusing?
That it can even happen. My wife would tell you that, I try to live right. It's crazy. I'll say it was so funny earlier today. So we had, we live pretty much in the woods practically, right? And what's Orkin, the pest company, Orkin. They went spray for insects or whatever, and they set mouse traps in my garage, right? And lo and behold, I'm playing with my son. This just happened today. I'm playing with my son. One of the boys, we're outside playing basketball, and we hear something happening in the garage. Lo and behold, a bird is stuck on one of the mouse traps. I'm like, oh my God, so I send him inside, and I probably spent the next half hour trying to get this little bird off of this thing. And of course, I'm going online and reading and say, okay, if you put vegetable oil, it will help. So lo and behold, the bird is fine. I only got gloves. I almost have a hazmat suit on because my wife's like, put this on it, don't touch that. And eventually I start pouring, vegetable oil, and this bird is fighting, and eventually it flew. It didn't fly off because it was covered in vegetable oil by the time I got him off, but it scampered into the bushes and went away. And it's like, golly, dude, like, that's, at the end of the day, I wouldn't have felt right. I wouldn't have felt right going in the house. I wouldn't have felt right saying, well, it's in the trap, to throw it in the trash. I was going to put every bit of effort I could to rectify the situation. Why? Because we called Orkin. We're the ones who had him put that trap in the garage. I'm the one who left the garage door open, and lo and behold, the bird went there, and you know what I mean? So I'm responsible, and at the same time, at the end of the day, I care, and like, it baffles me when you see people who don't care or so caught up in titles that you can overlook responsibility, and then just like just flat out hatred. It's flat out hatred, So I think that most people in that particular situation would have spent the time trying to get that bird off that trap, you know. But you're gonna find some who will enjoy that, will or just be like, Psst, let me just throw it in the trash and let you suffer, or do something even worse to it. So you look at what those police officers did to Mr. Floyd. I mean, that's 6 minutes, six minutes, at least filmed 6 minutes of like just not even caring for his well-being in any form or fashion, and that's really, it's really tough to me. You know, it's really tough to me, and even with the pandemic, I mean, we're at 100,000 deaths, and if we just took it serious, keeping it really 100, if the churches took it serious, how many black elders would we still have here today? You know, the numbers, I think certain deaths are going to be unavoidable. We're dealing with something that never happens in most people's lifetime, but because we had so many people going, psst, you know, oh, that's over there, that's too bad. Oh man, look what's happening over there. It don't bother me none. You know, if you have that mentality, you know, I think there's still certain people who look at 100,000 deaths and go like, oh well, wow, look at that number. Oh, what were you eating for lunch? And you're not bothered by that. And it's hard for me to comprehend how you cannot be bothered by that number.
Wow, that was a powerful story, the way you related.
Yeah. Sorry for my long-windedness. Stay tuned. There may be a few of those for the night.
No, we're good. I want to repeat back a few of the things. There's this part where you were talking about how, because you're the one who called Orkin, you're the one who left the garage door open, you're responsible. You said, I'm responsible, I care.
Yeah.
And then you went on to say that it baffles me that there's people who don't care. What do you think separates those two people?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think being in the business a long time, and this may change a little bit, but I learned a long time ago that everybody's an individual. I learned a long time ago that just because you make great art or you write a great song or paint a great picture doesn't make you a good person. I've clearly met, you know, someone I said, man, you wrote this song, I so need to meet you. And I'm like destroyed by who I met, you know, because they didn't represent anything that they wrote about, you know, or anything that they presented as art. And that's tough. So, I mean, I think I've learned that. And at the same time, you know, it's, even if I go to the Mr. Floyd situation, the cops that were on top of him, I think it's a combination of multiple things. I think it was a combination of racism, it's a combination of ignorance, it's a combination of fear, and it was a combination of pride and ego. I think the more people were saying, "What are you doing? Get off him," the more they were like, "No, I'm not going to get off now because you saying it. I'm going to stay right here." You know, it's like, rather than, you know, entitlement or just getting so lost in the title of this is I'm a title of an officer, so you almost forget what that title means. You say protect and serve. There's no protection in that particular situation. There's no serving in that particular situation. So you completely lost sight of what your actual title is. And we do that as dads. We do that as husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, parents. We do that all the time. Employees, bosses. We lose sight of just what's the actual title and responsibility. And then just keeping it really 100. I've often said that I'm thankful for the thoughts that I have and the thoughts I don't have. You know, from having friends who have committed suicide, to having friends who have wrestled with depression, to witness or see people who have abused people or children, and knowing that stems from some thought in their head. And I'm just thankful, one, that I don't wrestle with that thought, and two, I would not be able to say if I would be able to put aside that thought if it entered into my body. So I'm just at this point thankful for what comes into my head and what doesn't. What doesn't. Yeah, I mean that's the main gist of it. I'm pretty thankful for that.
That's an important thing to acknowledge, to be thankful for.
Yeah.
Do you believe that you've cultivated that difference in yourself, or do you think that it comes from some other source or reason?
What do you think? I mean, there are some people who are raised in abuse. There are
Mhm.
some people who wrestle with mental illness to a whole nother degree. And I pretty much learned that in college. I probably didn't realize anything about mental health, especially now looking back to some of the people I knew and know, that there were certain things that some people wrestled with that I just didn't realize even existed. So sure, was there certain times where my life wasn't working out the way I wanted it to work out, relationships failed, or the music business was being a little tough on me, and I kind of had to tighten up and lean heavy on the positive sides. There was a long time ago. I remember a long time ago where, oh man, I remember this day like it was yesterday. Oh God, this is crazy because I haven't really thought of this. I used to read, okay, Right On Magazine. Everybody, y'all can say in the comments because this is really dating myself. I used to look through Right On Magazine, and I would look through it to look at all the things I wish I had. So here's one page is Big Daddy Kane. I'm like, man, I wish I had that big gold chain. The next page be Al B. Sure. Man, I wish I had that jean jacket. The next page it'll be like Salt and Pepper. Man, I wish I had Salt as a girlfriend. And it was like literally every time I read the magazine, it was read or looked through the magazine, it was looked through in that way out of what I really wanted. And I remember one day going, that's not healthy. That's not healthy. That doesn't leave me feeling good when I close this book. It doesn't motivate me to work. So don't read it that way. I remember when I was a kid probably, you know what I mean? Don't read it that way. To where you're reading it from an envious point of view. And I think it helped me to not be envious when I saw someone with something that I didn't have and that I wanted. It didn't come from a place of like really like hungering for it, like to a point where that overshadowed the content that was in front of me, or the opportunity that was in front of me. And I feel really good. I mean, I really can say with all honesty that I can look over the last 20, 30 years and think of only a couple of times that I was probably envious of something. And all those moments were like really silly. You know what I mean? Like just, I love the color navy blue. So when I always joke with this, like when PJ Morton, when I noticed he had a navy blue Range Rover, that was a tough moment for me. And it was tough with love. I mean, that's my brother, right? But I was like, oh, you got that off because I wanted it. And now I know that he has it. I'm not buying a navy blue Range Rover. It's just, I can't be the second one. But I was like, but it's not a thing of like, I look at a friend's success and go like, why don't I have that? No, what's meant for me is what meant for me. And I've learned that through my travels that you're going to have your ups and downs. But if you enjoy the journey and appreciate it, you'll find yourself being in the right place.
Wow. Yeah. You've spoken a lot around ego, when you were talking about the cops, you mentioned that you thought it was a combination of racism and fear and pride and ego, the sense of entitlement. And we were just speaking about you not having envy. Would
Yeah.
you relate those two? Like how do you feel about your own ego? Or you seem to be very aware of how you're present around other people's ego. I'm just wondering if there's something
Yeah.
like if there's a correlation between that and your lack of it.
That's a good question. No, I think I really do believe it's everyone's journey, and you have to find in time. So the same way that someone can reach a certain level of success before or after you, the same way someone can have their awakening or their peace before or after you. So if somebody is egotistical, aggressive, insecure, or whatever, I may not necessarily want that in my circle, in my studio, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily pushing you out, because everyone learns and develops in a different time. Some people get things really, really quick. And I always compare songwriting or music to life. And there's certain artists you walk into and they know nothing. And then they walk into the studio and you put them around tools and around other people of knowledge. And within weeks, they're playing instruments and they're singing in the studio and they're writing. And you're like, how did you get there that fast? Where some people, it takes 10 years of just being around. And one day you see them and they're creating something magical. And it's like, wow, I just didn't expect that. But now you're like, amazing. How did you get there? So everybody has their journey. And the same way I would say that, what is really guaranteed is that I think everyone has a window of opportunity. It's just how aware are you when that window happens? And I would say that from a business standpoint. I think that happens from a peace standpoint too. That happens from a clarity. To me, if I really say my personal opinion, I think peace is more clarity than anything, right? So you'll have an opportunity for clarity. Just, are you aware when that opportunity arises? And I think that's the thing. So, if I can give somebody advice, if I can, nurture somebody or whatever, but at the same time, a lot of times it's just being patient. And most people will say, whether it's, I travel with a crazy band. They're great guys. And, one person's, completely financially illiterate, and the next person's super responsible, and somebody might be somewhat aggressive, and somebody might be, a germaphobe, and you have to accept that in their time and their whatever, that's who are you supposed to be, and I'd rather you be loud and upfront about it, of who you are, than to hide it and suppress it, and not be you. And so that you can't learn it and figure it out. I tell my band all the time that if you make a mistake, make it loud. Like I'd rather you play loud and wrong than like right and timid, right? So at the same time, once I hear that it was wrong, one, the crowd's going to appreciate the energy more than they're going to appreciate the right or wrong note. Then at the same time, I say, oh, well, when we went to that bridge, you played an E. That was supposed to be a G. Let's, so next time, let's just change that up. I'm not like James Brown, like $5. I'm taxing you, $5 for missing that note. It's like, no. How can we be better? How can we be better? So I think even from a business standpoint or from a personal standpoint, I just had a friend the other day who posted something recently, and I hit them up just saying, yo, man, you if you needed somebody to talk, I don't know, we don't talk much, but we are friends, and if you need an ear or need some advice, hit me up. And it's funny, right before we got on here, they hit me up saying, yo, man, I would love to rap with you. I think when I'm kind of going through, I think you kind of been there, so I would love to find some time to talk to you. I'm like, hey, all right, I don't know if I have the answers, but I have an ear, and I think it's just that, because I know I've wrestled plenty of times with different stuff, and I'm thankful for going back to what I don't have to wrestle with anymore, and what I still have to wrestle with, and I know that I'll overcome that too eventually, but it's a work in progress. I think we all are.
Yeah. Wow. You're very insightful, sir.
I try to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious about this idea of being loud and wrong, and I understand how useful that truly is in a musical setting. But can you relate it to a time in your life when you've been loud and wrong, and what's the response might
be? Loud and wrong. One goes back to something. It's funny. A lot of times in conversation, I discover stuff. So the other day, a friend of mine was talking about putting together a marketing plan for something he was doing, and he was questioning how often should he promote it? And it was I would say it was my friend B-Boy. He had a concert on mental health awareness. We're in Mental Health Awareness Month in general. And I said, well, first of all, the purpose of what you're doing is really, really big. It's about mental health awareness. So first of all, unapologetically promote it more than anything. Like, you know what I mean? You got somebody promoting, don't stop, get it. Like promote something about mental health awareness. And I was like, at the end of the day, the only thing that's 100% forgivable is effort. And we were like, we both stopped for a second. It was like, write that down. It was like, but it's true. But it's true. Like at the same time, if I got a bass player up there and he thinks we're going somewhere and we're feeling it, we're going in, and he's like, I think we're going here. And he leads in and it's wrong. And he's like, oh, I'm wrong. Okay, let me get back, But yet he felt it. He wasn't just like, I'm ignoring everybody. I'm just in my zone. I'm gonna try to impress this girl. No, he's like, okay, I see. I'm in tune. And he just happened to go the wrong way, loud. I don't think the crowd is like, boo, go. You know what I mean? It's like, nor are we turning, because we're like, oh, wow, okay, that was interesting. So for me, at the end of the day, and this is probably a life thing, but Tommy Davidson told me the only person who knows what will work is God, and the only person who can show you what works is the crowd. So that's a life thing. You know what I mean? So I guess for me, being loud and wrong, I've been around long enough, I've been in business long enough to know that certain things are not going to work out. So when I fail at something now, for the most part, if it's not a family, I don't fail as a parent. When I fail in business, in an idea, or whatever, I get excited about it. I sit up because I know that the intent of that failure will improve me, right? So in the times that I've been loud and wrong, it made me better. One, I'm still here. You know what I'm saying? Loud and wrong and getting you killed is one thing, but loud and wrong so that you clearly know what was wrong, but yet your heart and your effort was right, it's 100% forgivable. And especially if we get out the way of ourselves and not go so heavy in a boo-hoo moment, to realize that one, is God's plan, and two, it's the intent of the failure is to make you stronger in that part that you failed in, and it's so funny where I would say God's a comedian. So in marriage, like we've been married for 11 years now. As soon as you get married, I feel like God is going to test you in the area that you're weak in your marriage. So if you guys are not financially in tune, the first thing you're going to get challenged on is money. If you guys don't know how to communicate about family structure or what your kids are going to do, first thing that you're going to be issued with, the first problem so it's like, it's almost kind of tightening you up. And I think all the way through my life, it's been that. Like every time that I got close to some level of another level of success, it was almost like I got tripped up because I wasn't ready for that moment. I had to learn more before I could really handle it correctly. So sure, getting dropped from a record label hurt when I was 24 years old, but in hindsight, I probably wouldn't be the artist I am today if I stayed on that label. So how many artists do we know, sold 3 million records in 2001, and we don't even hear from them anymore? You know what I mean? So for me, I think some of the things that went wrong, some of the things that I made mistakes on, I had to do it. I had to do it just so that I could have what I have today.
Yeah. And it seems like you have a lot. Your family sounds very like one of your challenges or one of your greatest rewards, the way that you
Oh
keep
yeah. Yeah, it's hilarious, but I wouldn't change it any other way. And it's super incredible. And I think just even that, like I look at everything, when you look at just, you're a doctor, right? So just even how pregnancy, for me to have my child, let's just name one of my sons, for me to have that one son, everything had to happen the way it happened for me to have that particular son. If I ordered chocolate ice cream instead of vanilla, 10 years ago, I would probably have a different child, but I wouldn't have this one, right? So I'm glad I got that vanilla ice cream, even though I probably meant to say chocolate, you know what I mean, or whatever. Like all the things that happen, the car accidents I've gotten into, they had to happen in order for me to have that child. If I swerved and missed the car, guess what? I might not be married to my wife. I might have 3 daughters instead of 3 boys, and I might still be happy, but guess what? I wouldn't have these 3, and I'm really happy with these 3. I'm really happy with the wife I have. So everything that happened before, I have to be accepting and understand it was the purpose for it.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you're anticipating or looking forward to? And maybe you've laid the groundwork for it. Like we're speaking about how you've everything in your life has led to this moment where you're grateful with what you have. But I'm wondering if there's something coming up that you're laying groundwork towards.
I don't know about I mean, I'm very much, I have a group of people. Shout out to all my process people. I'm very much a process person, and sure, I plan for the future, but I try to stay more connected into the now. We're approaching my 20th year of releasing independent music. Though I've been in the business since 94, my first independent album came out 2001. So sure, I want to celebrate 2021. I really want to celebrate that to a large degree. But at the same time, for me, it's about what I hear today. Like if I sit, if I sit down and hear an album, if I sit down and hear a book, if I sit down and hear a script, or if I just sit down and play with my kids, it's that probably, you know what I mean? So I'm very open. I think there's a lot of opportunities that have presented themselves. Even certain things that, great opportunities that had to wait because of the pandemic. And it's opportunities. I think, I feel like as a writer and as an artist and as an entertainer, period, right now, I have the ability to do anything that was asked of me. If you want me to host a TV show, I feel like I could do it. If you want me to go on a comedy tour, I feel like I could do it. If you want me to go on a tour singing, want me to write for the biggest artists in the world, want me to produce for the biggest, I feel like I could do any of it if it was asked of me. Am I moving in direction for any of it? Nah, I'm doing just whatever I hear, and if the opportunity comes. So in 2022, and you're like, yo, this dude is on Fox TV, breakdancing, great. You know what I mean? What I would say is that I'll be prepared. But I'm pretty satisfied with where I'm at and how it's going and where it's going, so we'll see.
Okay. You said one of the last things you just said, I'll be prepared. But you're talking about doing things that you're not necessarily known for. Or maybe you do comedy. I don't actually know. But do you? Okay.
I don't do comedy.
Okay. I picked the right one. So if anyone asks you to do something you'd be able to, where does that come from? Mixed with you'd be prepared for it. How's that?
I think one, I'm an entertainer first and foremost. So even just, I'm not a comedian because I have respect for that term, for that title. But if anybody goes to my show, like, half of the show, we're trying to have you laughing, and we're constantly, have I ever really sat down to try to write a stand-up? No, but have I ever got on stage and I know I got 10 minutes because they got to fix a drum wedge before the next act comes on, and I got to hold the crowd's attention? I've done it plenty of times to know that if I had to do it, I could do it. And that's in every regard. I've written for some of the biggest artists. I've done my own stuff as well. So I would just be prepared, just believing that, if I'm willing to take the chance. If being prepared more is not only that I have the skill to do it, but also that I have the willingness to do it, right? So I'm prepared as a parent, even though we're not prepared, because I have no idea what the heck I'm doing with 3 kids and we're pulling our hair out, but yet I'm willing right? To try. And to me, as an artist, you know, for me, first and foremost, the way I look at art is like, I'm willing to fail in front of someone by chance of showing them magic, by chance of changing your life or giving you a memory that you will always hold on to. I'm willing to fail in front of you. And that's it. That's sports. When you look at the biggest boxers, when they got in the boxing ring, it's like, I'm knock you out, but at any chance you might knock me out. And that knocking me out, it'll be on film and people will laugh and I'll be ridiculed, I'll be embarrassed, be knocked out cold. I'm taking that chance because if I actually win or we actually make this great fight, it will go down in history. When an artist gets on stage and they sing for an hour, they may forget the words or they may miss notes, or, you know, a song may completely go the wrong way. A comedian, you know, the same way. Everything you think of, someone's taking a chance, but they're prepared to risk it. You know what I mean? They're prepared to risk it. So if it's the right situation, and the opportunity, I've been teaching for a year at Berklee College of Music, and was I prepared for the job of teaching? Now I could definitely tell you I wasn't. But what I was prepared for is like knowing that like there was a 19-year-old there that I could change their life, or a 21-year-old who I could impact. I knew that going in. You know what I mean? Did I know the full curriculum that I needed to bring for this particular subject matter? No. But I knew that, like, I've done that before. I know I could sew into somebody differently than what another teacher did. Not to say that I'm better or worse than anybody, but I would come different. I'll come with a different perspective. So in that way, I was completely prepared for the job. And it would be that in probably whatever position I was offered, from comedy to dance or to whatever, I would be able to present 100% of myself by chance that if it works, it would be magical.
So this feels very, very open and vulnerable. I've heard this from artists before, but you're explaining it so eloquently to say that you're willing to fail. And that is your preparation, having that willingness. And I understand that 20 years in the game plus is what got you that. But how does that translate to the rest of your life? Not just on stage, not just.
You know, it's so funny. It's funny you say that, because I feel like, and Barry White said it one time, and I remember I related so much. He said, my musical career has mirrored my life. It's almost been parallel. And so if I even speak just completely 100%, like with my wife, me and my wife were both getting over breakups when we met each other. When we first met each other, we were like, there's no way in hell we should be around each other right now. We're both suffering. And luckily I was dumb enough to stay around. You know what I mean? I was smart enough to see that she was something special, and it took a while for it to come around, but yet my future, my kids, my marriage, my happiness has been birthed out of a painful moment, you know, a painful moment. And if I didn't get out of the way of myself, I wouldn't have saw that. I wouldn't have been able to experience it. So in the same way of when I say failure, I sit up for the intent of it. I'm very open to that understanding. I really believe, speaking just for myself, that like God has like been nudging me through my whole life, and like just, you know, how many times have I been reminded that something has been prepared for me before I realized it was prepared for me. The proof that songwriting, that God was real through songwriting, came from me writing songs I didn't understand. So I would write a song and I would be reading it back like, what the heck does that mean? literally not understanding it. But I sat here for the last hour writing it, and I'm trying to figure it out. And then 6 months later, my life would catch up with the song, and I'll go, that's what that meant, or that's why I needed it. That it wasn't so that I could write it for some artist and that person perform it. That one line was meant for me to understand what I had to be or what I had to do. So it goes to all those things, you know. I'll be really. I have no problem being completely transparent. The one example I always think back is my oldest son had some delays, and he had something called sensory processing disorder. He's doing great now. First and foremost, I have to say that he's doing amazing. But when he was about 2 years old, we started noticing that something was definitely different about him than I saw my nephews or my nieces. And we had some tough conversations, me and my wife, about what's going on with our son here. And lo and behold, when we got together, we moved an hour south from where I grew up, where I was living at. We moved to a town that we knew nobody here. We literally just picked a spot and said, hey, they're building, let's buy a house here. We knew nothing of this town. We knew nothing at all. And we got married. We started having kids. Here we are now with a 2-year-old who's having some delays. And so we went and got him help. And we getting, you know, people coming in the house and they working with our son and this and that and that. And I'm scratching my head going, oh, okay, I don't see a difference, but we're willing. We're putting the effort there. And he turned 3 years old, and he aged out of the service that they were providing for us. So I remember that day, I remember talking to the lady, so what do we do now? Like, okay, so you're telling me he's too old for you to necessarily work with him anymore. And she said, well, did you look into the school system in your town? I remember this day like it was yesterday. And I was like, woo, all right, hold up. Don't get emotional. Here we go. Listen. So she says, you should look into that school system because they have a preschool situation for kids with certain delays. Crazy enough, we start looking into it, and lo and behold, the town we live in, this little small town, had a preschool situation that specialized and was one of the top in the state in kids with sensory issues. Like, you kidding me? You know, so our kid starts going to this preschool situation, and it's a half a day situation. It's, you know, bring him in the morning by 12 o'clock. He's coming back home. They call us at about a year in, and they go, you know, your son's doing so well. Can we create a curriculum for him? We want him to stay here all day. Give him a full day of school. And it worked just wonders. I mean, the kid went from not talking to being the most talkative kid in the room, the most sociable kid in the room. And it was a life-changing moment. And it was, you know, sure, did my wife, who's amazing, read every single article she could find online about this particular situation, and we were prepared. We put 100% effort into it. But at the same time, when we looked up, we were given what we needed. We just had to look up and realize that it was there, you know, and that's probably been my whole career. The moment that every record deal failed, and I mean, I went through every record deal. I knew every president of every label, knew every A&R. The moment everything failed and my only option was to put it out myself, look at the career I had. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get it. Like, it's like how many times I keep trying to steer the wheel this way. It's like, I get it. All right, cruise control. What do you want me to do now? You know what I mean? And I think you're really just catching me in a period of my life where I'm kind of completely understanding that now. You know, not fighting against the grain, just more listening and saying, hey man, if you want me to veer to the right, I'm veering to the right. If you want me to stay straight, I'm staying straight. Because I feel like that's more the answer when you're in tune when you're in tune. I was read something just today about there's a songwriter named Nick Lowe, and he said songwriting is something you can't turn on, but songwriting is something you can't turn off. What I would add to that though is that it is something that you can stay in shape for, right? So I may not have control how to start it or stop it, but I can be in shape for it. So I don't know when God is talking to me, but I can be in shape, right? I can be prepared to listen and just not be like, and that's probably what I did, first 30 years of my life, all right, no, I'm gonna do that. Now I'm listening.
Mm, that's that's really beautiful. Um, what are you listening to? You say you're in shape, you're in tune. What are you hearing like today?
Today, I think just that whole thing about, that was, I think, reaffirming the whole staying in shape. Because like I said, I was reading about this pretty much country artist, Nick Lowe, and I think it's very much understanding the process. So not forcing. When I go to songwriting, I know I got to keep. I always bring back songwriting because it's the way I connect things. I apologize, but most of my process people know I've said this, that I don't take credit anymore for writing. I don't feel like I write it. I feel like I more find it, right? So my day is a day of fishing. My day is a day of fishing. It's crazy that even the whole bird story happened because my son, my son Ryder, was looking. He wanted to build like a cart or something. He said, I want to build something. So we looked all throughout the house and we couldn't find what he was looking for. So he said, can we look in the garage? I said, all right, cool, let's go in the garage. So we go in the garage, we open the garage door. Before you know it, we take a basketball out, and he and I are just out there playing basketball. It had nothing to do with anything that led up to that moment. But for some reason, it was like, it wasn't like, oh, let's go in and include your brothers so they can come out too. It was more like, here's an opportunity with my 7-year-old. And just live it. So at that point, I'm Michael Jordan, and we out there just hustling until my wife was going, boy, if you don't get back in the house. Or when the other kids came out, nobody came out, and lo and behold, we heard the bird, which might have been the whole reason why all this happened, just so that we could share the story in this conversation. You know what I mean? For somebody in the comment area, in the chat area, to go, but for some reason, when we were outside in the garage looking for a wheel, the opportunity came for us to shoot some baskets, and we turned and did that. And I think it's the same thing. It's like just giving 100% to what opens up in that moment. And I think I try to do that with my marriage. I try to do that with my music. I try to do it with my parents and my parenting. I try to do it in this conversation right now. It's more about being connected in the now than really trying to think, oh my God, is it working, or will this work? The bird thanks you. That's funny to me. I'm gonna fight you for that comment. That's really funny. I think I'm very much. I try to stay on a process diet. I don't think about product much at all. I don't think about the result. I really try to stay in tune with what is going on. If what is going on means getting on the floor playing with Matchbox cars with the kids, then that's what's going to happen for the next hour. It's whatever it is. I try to stay in that moment.
I want to ask you this because this is kind of what I guess is coming to me, and it's a little bit of a switch in gears. Um, Everything you've been saying has been very positive. You're a very positively speaking person, and I appreciate that. I wonder if you have seen this quarantine as a gift. If some of these things you're saying have become more prominent in your life because of it.
It's hard to say that I seen it as a gift because I've lost friends. Woo! Hold up. I got a tear duct issue, so apologies. I got an allergy thing, so at any point I may just lose all of this, and I
I'm here with it.
apologetically. So it's hard for me to see it as a gift.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that may not have been the best
break
word.
dancing, break. No, we're good. We're good. It's hard for me to see it as a gift. But I will say that you have to look at the intent. It goes back to that again. You have to look at the
Mm,
intent. And I think when it first happened, and I knew I was going to be home, and all the shows were canceled, and me and all my friends were all like sitting at home twiddling our thumbs, I immediately went to my music. And I think I also immediately went to my friends and said, hey, we are stuck for at least the next 3 months. And in that time, even my students, I remember having this conversation with my students. My first thing was going, if you don't come out of this better with a whole new craft, this is your time to like really learn. And if you're supposed to be writing a book, you need to come out with your book, or you need to come out with a six pack, or you need to have an album, whatever that was. I've changed more now through more as more I started thinking, because it goes back to the individual. There's been some people who've been writing books and have been touring and been making albums, and this is their time to rest. And they just might need to sleep for the next 5 months because they've been doing, you know what I mean? And I think you have to find what is your personal growth in this particular moment. Guess what? If you are trying to quarantine, social distance, you can't go on the road and do tours. You may be an essential worker and have to work, but after that, you're not going to the gym or going to parties. So you're finding more time at home. It takes 2 seconds to ask yourself a personal question and be honest with yourself in your answer. And that question should be, what is it that I need to do in this moment for me to have growth? And at the same time, that can only be answered by you. That can only be defined by you. So when you come out, when we all clear up, when we can all come out and finally come out, it's not a thing of like comparing notes of like, so what did you accomplish? Well, I accomplished 18 books. What did you accomplish? I got my doc. It's not that. It should just be, at the end of the day, what was it that you felt you needed to do? Whether that's, I need to make sure I call my grandmother more.
mm,
Bang, then call your grandmother more. You know what I mean? And I had to kind of make sure I went back and changed that, the same way I was aggressively making sure I told that to everybody that I was in front of. I had to make sure I went back to them and told them that I had a change of heart and what that meant. I didn't, I felt like before, you got to take every opportunity in this. And now I'm not so much of that. Now it's more like, no, you need to take the opportunity to find out what you need to take the opportunity in. That's more important, because it's not about, well, you know what, in 3 months when we all clear up, I can't have everybody looking at me like I didn't do anything. That's the wrong
mhm.
way of thinking about it. So then you're going to do a whole bunch of stuff in the next 3 months just so that you can present it. It's like, no, it's like what is in your heart is probably more important, So God willing, when things clear up, uh, I will have certain things that I'm working on, certain things that I have, and other people will as well. And I think you should unapologetically present the different person that you are at that time. We're all going to be different. That's
Mhm.
true. Whether you just lay on the couch the whole time or whether you're really expanding, right? But unapologetically present who who you are when you do come out of this.
Mm. Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. I had the same reaction. Um, and that's such a beautiful idea of what this time and what this change in society is doing to our hearts more than what it's doing to our productivity. Sometimes they are the same, many times they are different.
Yeah.
I did, however, just check the time. You're so easy to talk to.
All good.
But I believe it's time to move on to our next section where we allow there to be questions from those who have watched so far. So I want to say thank you. I'll still be here. We'll still be going. But
Yes. And
hi,
Doctor,
Megan.
thank you. You had some great questions, and I hope your notes were, hope you're good at shorthand, because I know I said I had a lot of long answers for
Hi.
you. I had a lot of notes too.
At some point I was like, this is fine. I'm gonna just be present. I listened
There
to
we
what you
go.
were saying.
There we go. They're recording this. We can always go back and rewrite the notes later. That's right.
It's
So
true. It's true.
all good.
And with that, I want to do a collective deep breath with everybody who's on. We can't see you yet, but if we can just inhale, and we'll do an audible exhale. So inhale.
Nice.
And let it go.
I needed that. That was good. I need to do that more often.
It's important. I'm big on guided meditations, but and breathing and being present. That's how I do it.
Nice.
So, Megan, what's up? What's happening in the chat? I haven't looked at it. Oh, you're still muted, Megan.
Oh, she's still muted.
Megan, you're muted.
Thank y'all for telling me. See, I'm still in the moment over here.
Okay.
I think we're all kind of on the same page in the chat, that we were so intuitively listening that we kind of forwent the questions. So
Okay.
just to kind of a lot of
That's fine.
sort of kind of, we were glued to our conversation. So I pulled out a couple of notes and a couple of things. Now that you want to go ahead and drop in, you can go ahead and do that, and I'll make sure that I get them asked by Eric and Kay. But Eric, I just kind of come with a couple of questions that we kind of have in general to kind of reiterate on what you said, just for a couple of minutes, since I know we're over 9 and we don't want to monopolize your time. We know you got the kids and the wife upstairs. But you mentioned a lot about, and Kay went back and reiterated as well, about making a mistake out loud. Like, if we make mistakes, like, we need to make them out loud. For you, that's on stage, whenever you're with a band, I've seen you perform, seen you in action. I can only imagine how that looks, right? But for those of us who are in different spaces, right? For those of us who are lay people or who work, like, how do you see, even in your own home life or with your family, even in this time of quarantine, how do you see making those mistakes out loud kind of being like, now looking different in this time of quarantine, now looking different in this time of, like, society kind of turning on us, right, as a people? Like, how does our reaction now kind of shift from what it used to be as to what it can be now in our new climate?
Well, I think one thing to clarify, even with the make a mistake loud, it does mean, like, oh man, I'm gonna be late for work. So if I'm gonna be late for work, I'm gonna be loud about it, right? It's like, I'm gonna come in 2 hours late now, and just it doesn't mean it's not that, right? It's not. It's more about, like, let the effort in let the effort in your heart be the main thing that's seen in that moment, right? It's and I think a lot of it in saying make it loud is that, if I go from a songwriting standpoint, I'll try to bring it personal. If you're playing the right note but playing it timid, it's not heard. It's missing, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's plenty of times where you might see a drummer in the back going, and you might not even recognize what he's playing, but yeah, you're feeling his energy, what he's giving, what his showmanship. And I think it's just the same part of, like, if you're living, shoot your shot, and whatever that is. And that's in your work. If you want to raise and you feel you deserve it, like, put yourself in a position to allow your heart and your effort be seen in that. The result is going to happen regardless. So why not go 100% for it?
Wow.
You know, at the end of the day, you know, we had a talk just the other day where, and I've told a lot of musician friends this, and I'll say it again in this particular situation where a lot of musicians, especially female musicians, I'll say this even because I've had this conversation, who feels they need to downplay their dedication to music when they first meet somebody in dating because they don't want to scare that person off
Wow.
by showing them how much I'm dedicated, how much time I spend in the studio, how much time I spend writing, or what my lifestyle really is. And I go, no, 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 you should show them 100% from the gate so that you either scare them away right away or they understand what they're dealing with. You don't want to show them a year later and then they, you know, and then they leave like, I'm going to quiet myself so that you can possibly stay around. No, show them your flaws, show them your superhero qualities, and let them show themselves sooner so that you know what the truth is, so that you know clarity. We talked a bit earlier about, I said, I think peace really at the end of the day is clarity. I'm constantly trying to search for peace. I'm constantly looking for that clarity. Whether I make a mistake, whether I do something right, I'm in the right place to understand, like, okay, that job wasn't for me. You know what? My kid and he came to me a question and I didn't answer it the best way, but I tried my best. And at least in the answer, he knows that I love him and he knows he can come back to me with another question, even though I might have walked away from going, I didn't really knock that one out the park. But I tried. You know what I mean? I tried. My heart was in the right place. And I think that's the main thing you got to focus on.
That's awesome. And it's so true. An A for
Mm-hmm.
effort, right? Another question, a comment, a comment that was dropped in the chat, necessarily a question, but I'm going to make it a question by Joy Peeble. She said something about stigma being, there's a stigma around people finding themselves in their own time. A lot of people feel like, I guess, like we have standards, right, in the industry, or you have standards within your family even, or within your friend group, where people kind of quite naturally match themselves against each other. So how do you feel like, even in your journey, even in entertainment and music, from where you started from, which, you know, those of us that know your career and have been following you, we know that even back then it was dynamic. But when you look at the industry in this day and age, right, it may look like it may have been like a slower path. Like, how do you like address that point? The fact that people might try to compare you with other, what you would think are relevant artists to you.
Well,
how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I constantly hear people say to me, "Yo, you should be much bigger than you are," and I tell them, first of all, I'm thankful I'm even here. You know, I can name a million artists I knew who were enormously talented that are not doing this anymore for whatever reason. So sure, could it be bigger? But it could be far worse. And I've been very fortunate. And I look back at, like, when I first put my first independent album out, and at that point I'm surrounded by industry people. My friends all have record deals. Their managers, who I were good friends with, we're all working with record deals. I know all the A&Rs, all the labels. And when I was putting Esoteric out, my friends laughed. My friend said, "Okay, why would you? So you're not signed right now? Why would you put something out? How are you doing that? What, you just going? You really gonna sell out your trunk?" I remember literally having these conversations.
Wow.
And at the same time, it was like, well, this is just where I'm at. This is where I'm at the time. It was like, you know, laugh all you want to. This is just. I got to the point where I was able to understand that my success was going to be how I define it. It can't be based off of comparing off of somebody else. And even more, case in point, where my friends who might have went and sold millions of copies of records and then now are independent and we're now all on tour together, it's not a moment of going, see what I'm talking about now? You know, no, it's, guess what? Your journey was your journey, my journey's my journey, and let's keep it moving. And I think it's very important for all of us to really take a minute. You deserve to take a minute to define what your success is, define what your happiness is. I've been very fortunate. Let me tell you, to not be tested too much on that particular situation, because I have a wife who's very supportive, or at least tolerates right, my work ethic. I'll at least say that. And I have two enormously supportive parents who were completely supportive of me going to college, majoring in musical theater. But think of all the artists, or think of all the doctors, or think of all the architects, or any other particular situation where they put aside what they had a passion for because of not wanting to let somebody down. And you can't, you know, I mean, I think I want my kids to not want to let me down, right? But you can't live your whole life not trying to let people down, because guess what? You're going to probably live your life letting yourself down. And so, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily that, if your concern should really be a timeline or comparing or anything of that nature. If I'm an example of, man, take a minute to talk to yourself and get an understanding so that your walk is fine in whatever that is. If you want to date somebody 5 years younger than you, you can't worry about how somebody's going to look at that. You know what I'm saying? Like, date somebody who makes you feel great. If you want to date somebody of another race, guess what? That has nothing to do with me. You know, like, your happiness is your happiness. And I at the end of the day, even from a distance, I want you happy. You know what I mean? I want you working towards that. So take a minute to find out and define what those things are. What success is to you, what happiness is to you. Because I mean, just keep it 100. I know too many people who have a tremendous amount of success and don't realize it. A lot of people who have what they prayed for and don't realize it. You know, because you haven't taken a minute to acknowledge the fact that you now have it, or what you never really defined it. You know, you defined it that I want to be a big artist, and now you sold millions of records, but yet you didn't. You know, it's always funny. I compare it to, I have a circle of friends, and I look at it as Essence Festival. I always compare my conversations with multiple people. So I have a group of friends who are constantly going, man, I never get booked for Essence Fest. Man, I feel like I'm doing enough. Why I don't get booked. And then I have a ton of friends where, like, I only get booked every couple of years on Essence Fest, and I just do the Super Lounge. Man, I don't understand. I feel like I should be there every year, or I should be in a bigger room. And then I have somebody who's there every single year, but they're not in the main room. And then I have another friend who's like, man, I'm there every year in the big room, but I'm the guest. I'm doing a Patti LaBelle tribute, but I want my show. And it's crazy. Like, everyone's like all looking at the next person, the next stage, going like, why am I not on that stage? And it's like, yo, man, grab the mic and rock the stage you on. You know, rock the stage you on. Because the crazy person, the person who's like doing the really, really big room, when you talk to them, they're like, I just wish I had some time to be home. I've been on the road for 2 years.
Right.
It's like, dude, if we all just take a minute, man, and just define what you want so that you can unapologetically get it, period.
That's awesome. And that can definitely be applied to those of us who are on stage and off, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that we have to pretty much just kind of do what we can do, what we got. But you mentioned esoteric, and I'll kind of round out with this question, because I think this could kind of take us out. Rachel ever written a song on personal experience with grief, and she said that your esoteric album got her through a tough time when she lost her best friend to suicide back in 2011, and she found some songs that were relatable to her loss, even though they were more directed to love than grief. But thank you so much for sharing that, Rachel. But she definitely mentioned that, you know, you got her through. So have you written any songs that have been your experience with grief?
I mean, it's crazy. That whole record was made from a breakup. That whole record was an album. It was interesting because that was an album of pain. Esoteric means only meant to be understood by a chosen few. And really, my whole entire independent career came from that particular situation. I went into a breakup that I wasn't prepared for. Got my heart broken, and I went into the studio because that was the only thing I knew what to do in that moment. And my journal really became songs, in that time period. And so only meant to be understood by a chosen few. The album was really only made for her. She was the only person to really probably understand it. But at the same time, while I'm making these songs from my heartbreak and from my pain, I wasn't willing to sell those songs to anybody. They were too personal to me for me to shop them like I was shopping everything as a songwriter, which was probably the first thing of even going, well, maybe I'll put this out and I think my wife, when Sean heard that album, she was going through a breakup, and I think it was her example to show that someone could hurt like she hurt. Someone could feel like she felt, and someone could love that hard. And I think the first conversation we really had was based off of like, I didn't think, she literally said, I didn't think a man could think like that. And really, you got to think that I wrote the album in pain. So of course, when I first started touring from it, I'm a person still healing and touring from pain. So when someone came up to me and said, this record is a beautiful record, I would like frown at them. Like, what are you talking about? Beautiful. It's pain, Wow. But I learned that, I think through that album that, first to turn pain to profit, and profit doesn't always have to mean a financial goal. Profit just means have to be turn it to good. If something can be better from it. So I learned through that album, Esoteric, that one, I didn't have to write a song with a happy ending. If I wrote a song about getting my heart broken, I could end the song with my heart still being broken. I didn't have to bring it to like, but then at the end I found this little bird, and like, and then there's the song ends with like me just as lost and confused as I started, right? Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day, someone heard it and said, wow, I'm not alone. And that was the profit in itself. Like, it was like, and I think from that moment on, I was very, even more honest in my writing, because I started realizing that, like, if I really show myself 100% and not worry about it, if I'm hurting, just write about it. If I'm happy, just write about it. Someone will receive a reward from it. Someone will heal from it. It's great to one of the great rewards is that as a songwriter, you can possibly hear from a person like Rachel who can look in these songs and it helped her heal from this tough moment with her best friend. I didn't realize that when I was writing it, but that's one of the reasons why you have to release it, because that's the true reward, is that it has branches that other people will be able to climb on and grow with and stuff. So I mean, I'm one who, as a writer, if I have a bad day, I write about it. If I have a good day, I write about it. My wife has accepted that if we have an argument, there's a song gonna come out about it. If we have a date night, there's going to be a song about it. If we have a conversation, there's a song might possibly come from just this conversation in itself. I'm constantly being open. But yes, pain is one of the first things that I turn to in writing. When even the unfortunate situation, like I said, with Mr. Boyd, I may not write a song, but I'm gonna write poems. I'm gonna write an essay. I'm gonna write just because I don't know what anything else to do. It's like the first thing I go to, And if it comes out and it releases and it becomes a song that someone needs, great, so be it. But at the end of the day, that's what I turn to. It's kind of how I heal.
Oh wow, that's awesome. And and I'll close out too, and Kay, I'll give you an opportunity to say something, but to piggyback off of that, I know you talk about a lot too in the process when you're releasing so much music and you're doing so much writing that pretty much you're giving like your heart, like your art is your heart. Like whenever you put it out there, like it's kind of like you're leaving yourself open, you know, like
Yeah.
vulnerable. Even though I'm sure at this point you have developed skills to cope with what people say, right? But
Right.
as someone who consumes the art, someone who is a supporter of the art, it's always like breathtaking to me that true artists can be so vulnerable and so can recognize the fact that they are truly giving of themselves, which is kind of why another reason Stephanie and I were thinking that Solace was going to be an important safe space, because if you don't have enough of yourself kind of built up inside and you're giving so much away, awaiting validation, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does that really enter your vessel? You know, like it has to leave you in a space where you're kind of like, you know, and then waiting for the validation that may or may not come. I can only imagine that space is something so insanely crazy to navigate. So truly to you, you have made it just look so seamless, and you have brought us so many amazing soundtracks to our life. And I'm just so
Uh,
grateful that you took the opportunity and the time to come and talk with us on our first soul check.
no,
Um,
great.
and Kay, if you have any closing words, and E, before Kay comes on, if you have any closing remarks or anything that you wanna say before we close out, I'll give you guys the floor.
I'll jump in one just to piggyback off what you were saying. One,
Mhm.
I think it's important that we protect our confidence
Mm.
and we understand what our triggers are. You know, I learned very early on that making lunch for my kids during this pandemic is a tough time for me. So my wife understands that it's
Mm.
something. I'm not a cook, and like so I get overwhelmed, and if I feel like we're low on ham or something like that, I'm like, ugh. So I knew there was like this is a moment that if it's either gonna be very simple bagels or something like that, or I'm gonna tap out and let you take care of that because I know once I started experiencing it, I was very open with. I realized that's not a good moment for me. I had no problem doing breakfast or dinner, but for some reason that was my spot, and I think we have to learn that. And then I go back to my good friend Denon Porter said this amazing statement. He got shot when he was, I think, 16 years old, and he flatlined, but luckily the doctors were able to resuscitate him, and he survived, and he's now one of the biggest producers in the world, Eminem and a ton of other people. And he says, breathing is my reward.
Wow.
Period. You know,
And there it
so
is.
if you can write songs or if you could sing, I don't forget before you even get to the Grammy stuff. That's your reward. If you woke up today, that's your reward. And if you start just realizing it in that aspect, everything else becomes a lot easier. Everything becomes a lot easier. But you can't look for the other rewards. You got to at some point acknowledge the actual rewards that you have already. The fact that you can inhale and exhale today, that's a great reward.
That's so true.
Okay.
That's so true.
I wow. Okay, now I'm tearing up, but I'm fine.
Sorry.
No, no. I mean, as a practitioner, I'm always here for everybody else's tears, and then it's like, no, I'm good though. I'm a little misty. I I wanted to say how grateful I am for this experience, simply because I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I'm often someone who's caught in the head, but this has been really beautiful. So I was thinking about, I don't know, structuring it, if that makes sense. And the fact that the majority of our conversation was about being present in the moment was special for me. So I want to say thank you for that.
Mm.
Thank you for being open, Eric. Um, and the one thing that I didn't like circle back on, which is like why I do all the notes and the structure, was about reward and how in the beginning of this conversation, you were speaking about how you reward yourself with food, and that's why the keto and all of that. And then to end it with this idea of what is reward and it's just, I love how that came together, which is why I got, like this. Um, but yeah, so thank you. And thank you to Solace.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna I'm going to
Oh,
stop
well,
talking.
thank you guys so much. And to everyone who tuned in, thank you guys so much for coming. Truly, this was a labor of love on our part, and we thank Eric and Sweetlocks and the Process family and everyone and Mom and Pops for joining us this evening. I know you guys are still here in the room. We're so grateful to have you guys with us, and we're gonna have so much more programming coming up. There's so many things that we have in mind because we really feel like this is a space. We need this safe space, right? Even if it's just for us, right? We need a space to be able to kind of decompress and figure out what's happening and doing it together. So remember, if you guys want to reach out to us, our socials. I am Eric Roberson, as Eric on Twitter. His Ero44 on Instagram. We have artKure for K. For myself and Stephanie, we create SOLACE is our Instagram and our Twitter page. You guys can always hit us up, send us a message if you guys have any ideas or anything that you kind of want to discuss coming from this conversation. But in the meantime, we're going to check out. Thank you guys so much again and have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.